Welcome to High Point University's How to Land That Job series, part of HPU's commitment to fostering life skills and preparing students to render value in the global marketplace. Today's episode features Dean Cain, HPU's actor-in-residence, Superman, producer and television presenter.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here. We are absolutely delighted to have one of our global leaders in residence, Mr. Dean Cain. Hey. We're going to have a conversation today that I think will be wide-ranging. I said the only problem is we only have 1 hour. And Dean Cain is, you all know, an actor. He is also a writer. He is also a producer and a director. He was a football star, 22 interceptions in 30 games.
Yes.
At Princeton University.
I thought you were going to say 22 years ago.
No,
he's actually 32 years ago.
He's already found a way to call me old in this short little exchange that we had. We are absolutely delighted. Now, students, you never do research on Wikipedia. I think you all know that. But I went to Wikipedia, and really I did it for one reason, because I thought they would have a list of everything that Dean Cain has done. And I don't think this is a complete list. But it's kind of interesting, right? Just to see the sort of breadth of career that this man has had. And we are just so grateful that you're here to chat with us a little bit. We're going to do some Q&A, so we'll open it up to the room to talk your questions for Dean Cain about getting into businesses. Because really, it's businesses that you cover. But do you want to start just a little bit and talk about the sort of myriad career you've had and how maybe each of those began?
Sure. Well, for me, I grew up in Malibu, California, and my father and my mother were sort of on the fringe of the entertainment industry. My dad came out from South Dakota to be an actor. My mom came out from Connecticut to be an actress, and they met and they fell in love, and that, the end, happy ending. No, but it turned out my father was more he found his talents were more as a director. He started doing more of that, did real well. I mean, he was trying to make ends meet, so to speak, till the middle of my high school life, and then he did his first big film, was a film called The Stone Boy. But he got Robert Duvall and Glenn Close and these great actors in it, and so he got some cachet, and he started doing more. I took off and went to college. While I was in college, he was directing a movie called Young Guns, which some of you the kids probably won't there, but it was a number one hit, and it did real well. But it starred all these kids that I grew up with. Emilio Estevez, who else was in it? Charlie Sheen, his brother. Kiefer Sutherland. It was a great cast. Lou Diamond Phillips.
They were called the Brat Pack, right?
They called them the Brat Pack. Yeah. Yep. And which of course is a reference to the Rat Pack that the kids won't get either. But maybe they won't. But so then I grew up in that business. But I wanted to be. I was in a lot of movies when I was young, but I didn't know what I was doing. I literally was there because he was like, "You get over here and throw a snowball at your brother and say these words." And I was like, "I don't want to do it." Okay, fine. So I would do it, but I didn't have the bug. And I remember hearing that Rob Lowe was going to be, because another kid I grew up with, Rob Lowe's going to be an actor, or Sean Penn's going to be an actor. I was like, they're going to be an actor. Like, that's the weirdest thing ever. I want to be a football player, and I want to go to school. And then they became actors, and I went and became a football player. I went to Princeton University, and I played football there, and I had a great, wonderful time in school. And afterward, I had a chance to play for the Buffalo Bills for a short period of time, got injured, and then had to figure out what to do. And I knew I was going to work in the film world. By the time I was a sophomore, between sophomore year and junior year, I realized what my friends were doing. They were all Wall Street guys, and they would go over and they'd work 80 hours a week on Wall Street in a suit and tie. And in New York in the summertime, hot and sticky. I was like, this is terrible. My dad's on a set in New Mexico, playing cops and robbers. That's much more fun. And I love the idea of storytelling. I like being around that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to work in this field. It just was more exciting. Now, some of my friends became billionaires, so maybe I made the wrong choice. I don't know. But I was in school with guys like you think when you're in school that the world is as it's going to be. But I was in school. What's that guy Jeff Bezos guy? Yeah, he was 2 years ahead of me in college. Michelle Obama was 2 years ahead of me in college. So you realize who you're hanging out with. There could be another Jeff Bezos in here. If you are, give me your number and we'll talk about it afterward. I'll invest. But you don't know who you're hanging out with in college. So then I graduated, got injured playing football, and I was doing a lot of screenwriting. My dad wanted me to do a lot of writing because he didn't want me to be an actor. And I just sort of started doing more and more acting and writing and acting and writing. And then I was able to get a couple lucky breaks. And, the process for each actor is very different. Mine was, I was taking acting classes and doing things, and I didn't like that much. And I would go into auditions, and I'd be very tense, and I would be trying to do the things they taught me in class. And finally, I said, forget all this. I'm just going to be me. And immediately I started working. And then I had a couple little guest star roles on a couple different things. Then I was able to land the role of Superman and
Lois and Clark: The New Adventures.
And that was when I was 26. And I did that for 4 years. I started airing when I was 27. So 4 years, a wonderful 4 years. And as your papers show, I haven't stopped working since.
Can we rattle some of those little moments around
Certainly.
just a little bit? Because you said lucky, and I think it's true that a certain amount of luck, especially early in a career, is needed, right? But sometimes the harder we work, the luckier we get.
Luck favors the prepared. There's no luckiest people I know are the people who work the hardest.
So what are some of those steps, right? We've got a lot of people from various disciplines in here who are looking to introduce themselves, build relationships, sustain relationships. What are some of the steps that led to luck for you?
Well, I was fortunate because I already had relationships with my people who knew my father, so I knew some people in the business, but he never got me an acting gig ever. So it was, because again, he didn't want me to be an actor. He would have introduced me to producers and people like that I could write for. I was having a conversation with my son and some of his friends just a minute ago before we came in, and they were wanting to work in this field or that field, and I said, I know some people, and relationships are a huge part of it, and just the ability to make an impression, to say, hey, I'm interested in what you do, and because everybody is a person. I don't care if they're Mark Cuban or me or you. Everyone's a person, and if someone really wants to come to work and work for you, work in that field, have that conversation with you, and they show, and you see in them that ability, that the younger you, if you will, it's really important. And so I was telling them, I have a couple connections that I could hook you up with. But they better follow up with it because I'm not going to follow up with it. They better follow up with it, and then I'll do something. And it's the person who sends 37 emails. You're finally like, I better deal with this person, and they really want it. I just finished a film that I produced and directed and did everything for. There was a kid he was one of my college roommates' sons, and he's like, he wants to be a filmmaker. And I was like, all right, I'll see if I can get him on as an intern. Of course I can. So I got him on as an intern. That kid worked his tail off. We'll hire him again in a second. He did a great job.
Life skills, persistence, hard work, being humane. You talked about being you and how different that was than trying to act, right?
Yes.
And your career in particular, not only have you done a number of characters, but you brought yourself to hosting, presentation, to newscasting and interviewing. What is that step like? Because it sounds like that's a pretty brave thing to do, really.
Well, it's funny that you say that because in the acting world, so I've hosted, all sorts of different things, shows, galas, events, live shows, presented at, the Golden Globes, whatever it happens to be. A lot of actors are so actors that and are terrified to do that. They're also terrified to go on talk shows. A lot of them. Some are very comfortable, but most are not, because they're more comfortable playing a role of somebody else. And when they have to go on a talk show or do something like that, they have to be themselves. And some of the best actors I know are really uncomfortable being themselves. So it's an odd dichotomy. You expect that they're like, oh, sure, they're super confident. They're some of the most non-confident people you can see. There's so many things that they're so insecure about. It's crazy.
And do you think part of your sports training was part of bringing you to that moment in an intense kind of instant?
And it is intense. Yes, it's live television. People, you'd see it on a football field. Someone come running out there and they hadn't been out in a game before, and their eyes are just saucers, and you're like, oh no, maybe just slow it down here, and you see somebody just completely panic. It's like I know people who work in the film industry and who can't be on camera. They'll get on camera and they'll just freeze. Or people who don't want to public speak. you're great having a conversation with just you and I, but as soon as they go, oh my gosh, there's everyone else here, and they freeze up. And that's the kind of thing that you have to work on. And I think it's important to work on that. But I think with actors, it's just unique because they're used to being fawned over, especially when they hit a certain level, and they're used to it being fawned over in their work, not themselves. So when they have to talk as themselves, it's odd. And you look at them, you're like, he didn't seem the same in the movie. That's because he was playing a character, and his real life personality is not like that.
And we've got a couple of really great actors here in the room, and help them kind of thread that needle between all of that hard work you put in to the script, to the analysis, to building that character, and then ultimately having all that be your homework and coming forward with who you are in those circumstances.
Well, the last thing you ever want to get caught doing on camera as an actor is acting. So, my favorite actor is Denzel Washington, and he makes it look effortless. Like when you watch him work, he looks so comfortable and so in control of what he's doing. He's himself. I had the opportunity to play opposite him in a film called Out of Time. He had just won Best Actor for Training Day, and he had just directed Antoine Fisher, but no one had seen it yet. And I was on a movie I was shooting where I was the lead guy on this thing up in Winnipeg, and they're like, you want to audition for this thing with Denzel? I was like, yes, I do. And they're like, you have to fly yourself back and come in here. And I was like, okay. And I did, and I got to work with him, and then I got cast in the role. And then what I did when we were on set was I would just sit in the corner and watch his preparation, watch what he did. And he did things that I had never seen before that made me a better actor. Like I think he knew how to do that with me, which was great. He would change words, talk over me. In the film, we were very contentious with each other. And he was a police chief, and I was a younger, angry guy whose wife he was sleeping with. So I was, had reason to be angry. And it was great tension, and he just made me better. He personally made the stuff he was doing as an actor. I think it was very giving of him to do that, but it was also some of the best work I think I've ever done, because it's like playing tennis with somebody who's better than you. You play up to your competition or down to your competition.
And what were some of the things you think you learned? Can I ask you that?
I learned to be totally prepared, totally, completely prepared. Know my character and everything so well that if he wanted to get into anything, I could just go with it.
Right.
And I think that was hugely important, because otherwise, other people, you do that, you go off book a little bit, or you change things up a little bit in the heat of the moment, and some people will be like, well, no, that's not, wait, can we just, well, you just had a moment that was really magical, you should have stayed with that. So it's preparation, it's really preparation, knowing what you're doing, and but also for actors, just, there's one thing to learn acting in an environment like this, where you're able to go over it and talk about it. And another thing, when you have an entire crew there, and a lot of young actors come out, they don't know how to hit a mark. They've never hit a mark, which you have to do in film. You have to hit a mark. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're not going to be sort of coddled in a sense, sometimes, especially if you're a day player. You better come in, hit your mark, say your line, and do your job, or else they'll be like, give me somebody else in a heartbeat. So that sort of thing, that's when you're it's game day. You better be ready to go. And that's repetition and confidence. And then when you do that a couple times, then the next thing you know, I've heard stories of people like, I was going on to play this role for one day, and something I did was there, and they've been on the series for the rest of the time. So preparation is huge, and believe me, just go for it. I mean, you gotta read the room, but go for it. I mean, don't step on Denzel's lines, but but
be excited when he steps on yours.
Be ready to react to it.
Yeah.
And it's hugely important. But for me, it's all preparation.
And you've built a lot of structures, right? I mean, some of that preparation is about building structures in which you can play. You built a lot of structures. So Angry Dragons, and I'd like to know why it's called that, but Angry Dragon Entertainment is your production company.
Yep.
And you've now done a feature film.
Yep.
First feature?
First feature that I wrote, produced, and directed. And I'm very excited to see that come out.
We're excited to see that.
It's called Little Angels. It's kind of like a Mighty Ducks kind of a film. But I'm in the editing room now with it, and fortunately, I stole one of my dad's editors. So I steal a lot of my dad's really good guys, and it's funnier with what he's doing with it than I thought it was when I wrote it. I thought this might be clever, could be fun. When we shot it, I thought, it's kind of funny, and he's really finding some gems of moments. So I'm really excited about that. But when you're doing character work, when you're talking about doing like playing characters and things like that, I remember even the Denzel movie, I was like, I played professional football. This character was supposed to be somebody who had a shot at professional football. And my director, Carl Franklin, was like, what kind of car are you? And my character's name was Chris. My son happens to be named Chris as well, but the character was named Chris. And he's like, what kind of car do you think Chris would drive? I was like, I think he probably had like a muscle car when he came out, like a little Mustang thing. Then he didn't make it. So now it probably still has the same car and it's beat up. He probably bought his wife, a nice little Mercedes that, now looks like. Well, he didn't say another word about that. We were just sort of talking about the character and building the character. Well, I showed up on set and we were supposed to be shooting their house. Mustang, Mercedes, Russ. I was like, wow. He was listening to me. That's incredible. But it worked, and it worked real well. So that was the other thing I was surprised. He listened. He's a guy who had credits that went on forever. Devil in a Blue Dress and some great movies. Carl Franklin's a great director. And he and Denzel had collaborated before.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to see that he was listening and taking things from me at the same time I thought I was spitballing.
And are you bringing some of that to your producing, directing?
100%.
Yeah.
I have a saying, so when I'm working, I say best idea wins. So obviously at a certain point in time, we got to, okay, enough of the ideas, let's get this done. But if somebody has a great idea, I want to hear it. Some people don't want to be collaborative like that in this medium sometimes. And there's a lot of egos involved. But I just want to hear if somebody has a really great idea, let's hear it. And I'll tell you yes or no on the day. I'll make the decision then if it's right for the project or not. And you may think about it afterward too. But I like to be open to others' ideas because you realize, even in watching my dad, it's my dad. And he's this director. People are like, your dad's such a good director. Oh my gosh, I can do this. And I studied this film and that. I'm like, he's just my dad. He doesn't know how to cook. But they don't care. They watch the film and you're like, oh, you see him in a different light because you see him as this director. At the end of the day, we're all just people, and somebody might have a great idea that you didn't expect.
And you talk about this intern who comes in and works his butt off, and so you are going to bring him in again.
Yeah.
Do you find as you're taking on this role and then this role and now feature film director that you're starting over and kind of working your butt again in a different way?
In a sense, it's like that, but I think that's what happens in any career. These things have changed. Things change so fast. I have no problem being new, so to speak. I'm not afraid of it. I think some people, and this is something that's just people fear failure. I don't fear failure. I fear not taking the shot. And if I go in on something and I look at the things that have been the biggest and most wonderful parts of my career or anything that I've done, any event, anything, it's something, sometimes half the time I was terrified of it. Like, can I do this? Will I be able to do that? And every time that I've gone and done that, that's been something I point to later and go, yes, that's one of the big moments of my life. And so I encourage people to take on more than you think you can handle. And you'll find that you'll rise. Well, you got to work for it, but you'll work for it and you can rise. And I think that's huge, huge lesson for anybody, regardless of the field.
Well, if we make no other points today, I think that particular life skill is probably worth making. Let's open it up to our student audience and let's see what questions we might have. Yeah, I'm going to do a little Phil Donahue.
You run.
I'll see you.
I'll stay here. It's warm in here. I don't want to run.
Would you say that one of your best traits for often being successful has been your ability to adapt to new situations? I mean, you went to Princeton and then were in the NFL, so you've always been very good and successful at anything you put your mind to. But stemming off to other things, so were you just do you feel like you're always, I guess, the whole thing about adapting, is that the best way to jump from one thing to the other?
I think it is. The funny thing is I was a good student, so I got to go to Princeton. I was a good football player, so I got my shot at the NFL. And those were the things that I always did best. And then I was 22 years old, and I had surgery on my knee, and I didn't have school, and I didn't have football. And I was like, ooh, I better figure out what to do now. And then you're brand new. It's like when you guys get out of here, when you get out of school here, you're not going to be a college student anymore. You get to be a brand new freshman at life. And that's a time where you got to go, ooh, it's going to take a while. I remember I graduated from Princeton. I'm like, it's Princeton. And then 6 years later, half of my friends didn't have a job. They didn't know what they were going to do. So be patient with yourselves. They put a lot of pressure on you for those things. But adapting is a huge part of it, and being open to it. Again, when I was in college, if you'd have told me that one of the kids I was in school with is going to change the way commerce is transacted, I would have said that's impossible because everything's already been developed. I was wrong. I'd like to go back in time and just hang out with Jeff a little bit, and just buddy up to him and go, hey, you know, you have any dreams to go to space, Jeff? Adapting is huge. We always have to adapt. And as an actor, you have to uproot yourself and go, I've shot in so many countries, been in so many places where I'm like, I'm in Bulgaria. Well, who goes to Bulgaria? What is this? And then you find yourself, you know, in Russia or Australia, and you're like, wow. So you're always having to adapt and different people. So that is a skill that I think works across any business, anywhere. And being personable, you know, talking to people, I think is another very important skill. You don't have to be overbearing, but you can just say hello to them, and now you've met them once or twice, and you'd be surprised. I love the thing that you guys have here with that airplane. That airplane thing is amazing, where you have that little cafe where you can sit there and meet. Yeah, you thought it was a real airplane. No, you should know. You know, that you sit there and do that. That's just a great thing to be able to talk to somebody and figure out where they're from and just have a conversation. And you'd be surprised at how often that can, you know, even as an adult, we'll do it. And, oh, my kid's into this. Okay, it's funny because my friend owns this company. Blah blah blah. Next thing you know, that kid has a shot at an internship. Now, that kid who gets that internship better work his or her tail off, because now your parent or friend has put you up with it, and their reputation's on the line, and they'll say, hey, go do a good job. And you do that. Like, I was able to get in through lots of doors because of my dad, but once you're through the door, now you're on your own.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I just was wondering, like, I know these are like the current times that we're living in. There's a lot of people are probably struggling a lot, like trying to find their way, career-wise and job-wise. You know, a lot of us are probably stuck in like those valleys, trying to get back to higher places. What do you think would be a good strategy for trying to get back? You know, get out of that rut and get to the top as soon as possible, as quickly as possible.
Boy, it's a very unprecedented. You hear that word all the time. You know, unprecedented time, but it really is. I think we're on the way as a world, sort of out of that valley. But it's the simple things we talked about earlier. You know, it's hard work, it's preparation, it's focus. It's those very simple values. One of my favorite sayings forever is, and it was the first day I got into the NFL and we got our playbooks. Our head coach was a guy named Marv Levy, who's now in the Hall of Fame. And on that was a quote from Calvin Coolidge, which talks about persistence and perseverance, and how that is the single thing that will lead to greatness. And I believe that through and through. Even if you fail, you get knocked down 7 times, get up 8. And I really, truly believe that. It's worked in my life, and we've all been knocked down. So get back up and go at it. There's no magic bullet, and there's no shortcuts. I see people that try to take the shortcuts. I've seen them, the hustlers that are just hustling around doing this, that. They're looking for the shortcuts. There aren't, as far as I'm concerned. I haven't seen them. It's hard work and determination and grit. Those are the things. And if you stick with something, because most people quit. And so that is my biggest piece of advice. Whether that leads to opportunity right away, doesn't matter. Because if you keep going, you'll eventually find it.
You have a question?
Yes. Hi, I'm Dominica.
Hi.
I just wanted to know, what do you think directors and casting agents and producers are looking for when casting new actors?
Oh, the dreaded question. Well, I can tell you stories, and here's one. My dad was talking about it back in his day. He was there, and they were sitting there with a casting agent that he liked, casting director person, and they had just a huge stack of submissions. And this one was here, and he's like, he said, get rid of all the L's. It's impossibly hard. Knowing someone is obviously key to being seen. When I cast this last movie, because of COVID, we couldn't see anybody in person. I had to do it all off of video takes and things like that. What I was looking for was, because I had a lot of kids, I was looking for kids that were funny and goofy and obviously had the character traits that I wanted, not overly polished, but had a quality. You look for a sort of a quality in them. And it's a real crapshoot. It really is. You don't know. And I was trying to put people together and this and that, but I couldn't even see them physically. I know this girl's 4'10". These girls were 10, 11, 12 years old. I'm like, she's 4'10". This girl is 4'9". I was like, they're all so small. They were. But you try to put it together, and it's so hard to say exactly what it is and who they are. I also then would go look up and see if I had any work that I could see for them online. I don't know if this is typical for others, but if I saw somebody, I thought, hey, she has a certain quality about her. What's her name? Does she have an Instagram? Does she have does she post things on that? And see what the personality was like as well. I think that can help a lot. So be careful what you post, by the way, on social media, because people will look at it to see what you're about, and that's true for any job. To get noticed, it's such a weird thing. Again, if you were in the L pile, you were out that day. No rhyme or reason. I tell people who want to be actors, act, do it. I don't care what it is. If it's a student production of this, do it. Film this. Make your own movie with an iPhone. It's so easy these days, and that kind of thing can really catch someone's eye. It really can. Some of the submissions we got, people had done so much work and studied with so-and-so and did this. I didn't care, to be totally honest. I looked at it, I was like, meh, I don't know. There were a lot of first-time actors that I had in that, and they were fantastic. And, I try to make people comfortable. If I have an audition, because I'm an actor, I'm used to it. You walk into rooms and everybody's sitting there looking at you, and they're looking at you like they're so important, and they're going to take the time to listen to you, but they really don't care. That's a horrible way with actors to get them to be relaxed and do their job. So I try to make everybody comfortable, and I want them to know that, I'm looking for someone to win this. I'm rooting for you, and I would run it with you and do things. And you didn't see that very often, which drove me nuts. So the audition process is its own process. And then once you have that job, it's a whole different job to go do the job. But to get specifically noticed, it's one of those things. It's like, do as much as you can on your social media, do things like that. And when you do an audition, do your best. If you're doing an audition on tape, you have some time there to say a few things, because they're going to watch the same scene over and over and over. You can be a little bit of yourself or that character that you're going to play. If you think that character has a goofy thing about them and they're goofy and positive all the time, you can do that in your quote slate where you're saying who you are and what it is. You might throw a little thing about, I love this character because so-and-so, or because of this or that, or do that at the end of your audition. One of the little girls did that. She was perfectly great in her audition, by the way. It was hysterical. It was a line that she gave a completely different reading for, which was funny. It caught me off guard, and it was very, very funny. But then at the end, she talked a little bit. And I was like, this girl, she's the one. She's one of the first ones I cast. And she is brilliantly funny in the film. So there's really no prescription for it. So it's whatever you can do that feels natural and right to you. Don't do something that you don't feel comfortable doing. Like, don't do something because you think it might be right for them or trying to impress them. Stay within what you feel is right. I know it's a non-answer, but that's the best I can do.
We have a lot of questions. Great. Go ahead.
Would you say that you have like a short list of things, like just for a job interview in general, that like interviewers are looking for, or would you say it's pretty similar, not pretty similar, but like to just an audition, or like different kinds of things that they're looking for?
In some ways, for an audition, actors are always so nervous when they come in for their audition. And by the way, every actor is nervous. I don't care who it is, they're nervous. They always get nervous, and that's okay. And accept that. Even if you just go, I'm nervous. You put it out there and it's broken. It's out there a little bit. Job meetings and things like that. It's this for me. The simple things. I look for the confidence in the person, their confidence in themselves. I look for a firm handshake, a look in the eye. Those things are hugely important. Not to the point where you're like, how are you? Like you're challenging. But to the point where you realize the relationship and you're straightforward and you're open and you're listening to them. You start challenging somebody in a job interview, you're gone. They're like, yeah, nice person. Like, I didn't like that guy. Okay, all right. That's not the way to go about it, at least in my opinion. In that sense, and even in the, when you have auditions for an actor, come in. This is your moment. Come in. It's your room. Do your thing. Hi, how are you? Blah blah blah. I would go in and go, hey, I'm Dean. I want to get right to it. Let's just get into it. Small talk, I don't. That's not what I'm there for. If they want a small talk afterward, great. If they want to do it beforehand, okay. But I like to just go and do the thing we're doing. I like to do it 2 or 3 times though, and you rarely get that chance. It's unfortunate. It's the process we work as actors. You know, you run it, you rehearse it, you run it with your other actors. Timing, acting is reacting. This person does it this way. This person does it completely differently, and so your performance is going to change, and it should change unless you're not listening to your other actor. Well, casting directors, you get in there and they're like, "Yeah, what are you doing here today?" And you're like, "Wait, whoa, that's not." You know, so it's hard. You got one shot and do your best, but come in with confidence and be yourself.
Hi, I'm Jalen. I'm really interested in producing. Can you talk a little bit about kind of like that level of stuff, since you saw like your dad doing that a lot and the people he would introduce you to?
Sure. So producing is it's a wild business, and there's a lot of jobs. When somebody says they're a producer, they can mean 100 different things. It can mean you raise the money, you helped raise the money, you introduced somebody who had raised the money, or this. It could be you put this actor together with this director because you happen to know them both. Hollywood's a lot of personal relationships. It could be you delivered certain key elements to the film because you know the director of photography, or you know this person. There's a million ways, or you could actually be a line producer, or you could. I promoted one person up to an associate producer, which is the most. You don't know what the heck an associate producer does, but I promoted them up because they were doing such a great job. There's a million different just descriptions for that particular job. It just depends on where you want to be. I mean, the number one thing for making films, and this is specific to films and television, if you don't have any money, you don't have a project. Right behind that is, and a lot of people go this route, is if you don't have a cast or a director or some sort of a package, they don't listen to you or take you seriously. You have a letter of interest from a couple of actors that people know. People go, hey, okay, that's interesting. Maybe they're real because they have this letter of interest signed by Denzel Washington. You'll never get that, by the way. But you know, you get those kind of things, and that's one way to make it real. Or you know great writers, and you've been helping cultivate writers and having the material and helping be the facilitator between the material that gets to somebody, whether it's an agent. So you have to know an agent. People don't want unsolicited material. I'm a writer, but I represented. So my guys can send the stuff over and people will take a look at it. If you're some brand new writer, you're not getting it to anybody because they don't want it, because if they have something that's similar to what you wrote, even if they didn't read what you wrote, you could sue them and say, oh yeah, that was like my idea for, Starfighter 12. And you're like, well, I never read Starfighter 12. We sent it to you and we think you did, and now you're in a lawsuit. So if you know agents, or if you know writers, or if you know the talent, or if you have the money, any of those things can start getting you in the producing world. And then it becomes things like, you have tax breaks in Tennessee, and the film commission people. And so that's basically the Hollywood. And then producing, again, it's the most, there's no description for what a producer does. Executive producers usually just bring the money. If you got that, you got a movie. It's true.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Hi, I'm Dylan. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure.
So I'm actually trying to become an artist in the music industry, and I was wondering.
Music industry. Sorry. So I couldn't hear. I'm sorry. I was making noise over you.
It's all right. So I'm trying to pursue a career of making music and being able to travel the world and collaborate with the best artists in the world, like Snoop Dogg, Pharrell Williams, people like that. And I was wondering if maybe you knew some people in that industry, because the Hollywood acting business and the music business are tied together somehow.
They are, in a lot of ways. I'll tell you though, as tough as the film industry is and entertainment, boy, music, woo! It is. My brother's a musician. He's a guitar player, and he's done a lot of work with a lot of people. There's a lot of who you know is important, or having extreme crazy talent. Nowadays, the kind of music that do you perform? Are you a producer of it? Are you?
I'm a producer, and I make rap music, R&B, pop. I'm working on building my portfolio as it is.
Going to work as an intern at a record label, things of that nature. You start to know people, and so one of the things my dad did was a movie called Pure Country, which starred George Strait, and they make a lot of music, and music goes in this, and so on and so forth. Well, he was in there with the manager, George's manager at the time, a guy named Irv Woolsey, and he said, we need some songs for this, and Irv goes, look at this. It was a pile this high of CDs on his desk. And he goes, my dad said, well, what is that? And he said, those are the submissions for Pure Country. And he's like, wow, that's incredible. He goes, from today. He wouldn't listen to him. He didn't listen to him. They wouldn't get listened to. So as good as they might be, there's other people listening to it. It's not, because it's a crazy industry where people are fighting for it. It's the kind of thing, again, if you have music and you put it out, maybe you have a YouTube channel or something like that, you start getting some attention, that's another way to go. Knowing somebody working at an internship at a record label is always a great way to go. Or work, and those guys, Snoop Dogg, everywhere he walks, he probably gets 15 CDs a day. What's that?
My brother actually interned at Rock Nation, so he might know some people.
That's the best way to go about it, because it's an incredibly competitive field, and getting your foot in the door is in some of these things that you picked, like pretty much the most difficult of all of them. But if you have the talent, it goes back to persistence and drive and continuing to do it and put it out there. Make music. If what you do is make music, keep making music. Keep going. Even if you're building up a library of 7,000 songs, if your song 4022 hits, every other piece of music that you've written is now viable. And they'll listen to it.
Hi, my name's Gloria.
Hi, Gloria.
You keep talking about getting your foot in the door. So I went to one conference and Sarah Blakely spoke about, the founder of Spanx.
About the what? I'm sorry?
The founder of Spanx.
I can't even.
Founder of Spanx.
The founder of Spanx. I don't wear them, so that's to my defense. Yes, I know what they are now. Yes.
But one of the ways she got her foot in the door, besides, typical like emailing and trying to contact, because, people are very hard to reach, she literally mailed one of her shoes to the address and got her foot in the door.
Ah!
Yeah, and that got her attention. So do you have any recommendations of different unique ways to get your foot in the door?
Boy, that's hard to beat that one. Holy smokes. You could actually cut your foot off. No, that's not. Wow. I'd never heard that story. Well, that certainly separated her from the others. Another way is being persistent and consistent and making them pay attention to you for a second. It depends on which field it is, because some of them they might call you a stalker. But that persistence, eventually you're going to, someone's going to be like, this person is, when that sort of happens to me, I'm like, what, this person again? What is it? Let me see what it is. And we'll take a look at it and then give them an answer, because enough is enough. That's a squeaky wheel. And you're like, what? I appreciate their gumption and their stick-to-itiveness. And all right, we'll pay attention for a second. I'll bite. What is it? And then you'll do that. And sometimes you're really pleasantly surprised. Then you've discovered this jewel, and it works for everybody. I wouldn't even have gone with the shoe, sending the shoe over. That is unique. That is certainly an attention getter. Maybe it worked one time. I don't have any particulars to give you. You threw me with that one.
Peyton has to leave for voice lessons, but she has a question for you. We're going to get her the answer after her lesson.
Of course. Come on, Peyton.
So I'm Peyton. I'm a theater performance major. I've only ever done theater auditions for musicals and shows and stuff, but I've never done film, and I would really like to get into film after graduation. So what would be your best advice for somebody who's only done theater, not film?
Well, they're saying about acting. So they say theater acting is this big, and then television acting is this big, and film acting is this big. And it's accurate to a lot of degrees. Broadway is huge, and you go see Broadway, and it's a big, giant thing, and they're projecting for the room. In film, because the moments that we have as individuals aren't that. And sometimes it feels awkward because you're laying in this weird direction. All I want to see is your eye move over here, and so it's very different. If you've been doing so much theater, you have tape, you have stuff. If you want to move into film and television, you're starting over like everybody else. And again, you'll have to go on submissions. You got to meet people. It's incredibly difficult. Having any sort of a connection to anybody, like having a connection here to High Point, having a connection to me or anybody like that helps. It helps tremendously. And so I went to Princeton. When there are kids who are anywhere involved in anywhere at Princeton who know some of the same faculty that I knew, and they call me up, they get a hold of me and they say they're interested in this field, I listen to it and I always pay attention to that connection every single time. And there's been, and I look back at some of the people who did it, I'm like, they turned out to be very successful, but they were going to use those connections. Use any connection that you have. If you have that kind of talent, if you have real special talent, and you don't give up, you'll get your shot. And you may feel like you get one shot and that's it. That's not it. You get more shots and then more shots. And then how often the overnight, oh my gosh, Peyton's an overnight success. Peyton's not an overnight success. She's been working her tail off, and she's going to leave this incredibly fun conversation to go have voice lessons. You're working hard. That's what it is. So use your connections, anything you have, and let people know how badly you want to do that. And you get looked at occasionally. You'll be over that pile of L's, because someone said something and you've been recommended by somebody. Dr. Quabain says, take a look at Peyton. I'll take a look at Peyton. You know what I mean? It's that kind of a thing. And that's invaluable. It really is. So use any connection you can to get seen.
Thank you.
Certainly. Don't be shy. Do it.
Hi, I'm Jada. I'm a sophomore right now, and the idea of graduating in 2 years scares me. Like what career path I want to go down, and the idea of working the same job every day kind of scares me. And I feel like that's the same for a bunch of my peers. So I was wondering if you had any advice for students who are unsure of what career path to go down, because you said that you chose many different career paths growing up. So if there was any advice that you could give for that.
My first one would be calm down about it. Seriously, because again, when after 5, 6, 8 years after I graduated Princeton, my Princeton friends didn't know what they were going to do. So many of them, and I'm like, wow. Some knew right away. Some got married, going right there, and they're working in the same business now that they did 30-something years when I graduated. I graduated in 1988, so jig is up. That's a long time ago. I know, that's terrifying. Just think about that for a minute. Be patient. Try different things. You got this child, you're coming out, it used to be you graduate college and it's backpacking time around Europe. That's what everybody used to do. And you have some time. Use that time while you don't have, depending what your future will be, while you don't have a family, you don't have these things, and you hear it sounds cliche. Use the time to figure out who you are and what you really want to do. And do what you want to do. I think that's so important. And if you don't know, try different things. Like I knew investment banking was not going to be my thing. I saw that, I was like, no, I don't, no. And then I went standing on a set and I was like, yes, this is fun. And you'll find that. But be patient with yourself. Don't make it be a pressure thing. That doesn't help you in any way, shape, or form. Just know that it takes people, everybody works, it's very subjective. Everybody works at their own pace, finds their thing at their own time. I mean, I got to be honest, I was finishing the 4 years on Lois and Clark, and I was like, I'm not even sure I want to be an actor. Because, I was questioning it. I was like, this is just so much, all 18 hours a day, 5 days a week, and this is before my son was born. But, and I, by the way, I've never taken the lead in a series since, because I was a single dad raising my son. I didn't want to be gone those hours. I wanted to work in a different way, so I defined how I was going to work. And it sort of comes to you. So be patient with yourself. I know most people don't say that, what you just said, which is so very honest. I'm a sophomore, I'm graduating in 2 years. I'm terrified of what I'm going to do because I have no idea. That's unique. But it's also extremely honest. And you're not the only one. And you may end up, changing the way commerce is done forever, like Jeff Bezos. You never know. You never know.
So we have time for 2 more questions. First one's here.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Question for my friend who, loves Superman.
All right. Oh, I love your friend already.
All right. Would you ever consider playing Clark Kent again?
Would I ever? So, of course I would. I loved playing Clark Kent. It was a great role. It was a seminal role. It defined my career. And still, people call me Superman all the time. And you see a lot of actors who are like, "Oh, don't call me Joey from Friends." Matt Luck doesn't say that, but there are other people who do. David Schwimmer, for example. I'm kidding. No, I'm not. Oh, yes, I am. Shh. But some people can't move on from a character. Listen, if you're going to be referred to as a character forever, Superman's a pretty good one to get. I also played Scott Peterson. I don't want people calling me Scott Peterson all the time. Yeah, a couple people saw that. Okay. I loved it. We never got to finish our series the way I wanted to, way I don't think Terry wanted to either. We were picked up we did 4 years, and we were picked up for year 5. And then before we went back, Terry had a pregnancy, and it was difficult, and so she was going to be bedridden for a long time, and they didn't want to shoot it because it was Lois and Clark. They didn't want to shoot it without her, and that's the reason we didn't do the final season. But she and I have both talked about it since, and I'm open for it. Before they did this, I guess new Superman and Lois just came out. I haven't seen. Anybody seen that? Is it good?
I've only watched it once.
It can't be that good then. I'm not saying no Schadenfreude here. I'm not saying it's them, but there can be only one. There can only be one. That's Highlander.
And that's not.
He's what?
He's scrubby looking.
He's scrubby. I'm gonna hug you in a minute. No, Tyler Hoechlin's a very good actor. He is, but he does have hair that comes over the top of the S, which is different. I'm kidding. Well, I'm not. That's true, but that's not the reason. But I would do it in a heartbeat because I'd love to see what happened to Lois and Clark 20-something years later. It's never been done like that, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. There was a lot of unanswered questions in the series. Terry's up for it. I think we have very vastly different ideas for how it'd be. She was like, it'd be like Superman. He gave up his powers. And I'm like, no. Superman did not give up his powers. You guys have children, and they're partially Kryptonian, partially not. They have powers. She was like, no, I think Superman. I was like, no, that's not. That defines our relationship right there. But I'd love to see what would happen, and I'd love to do it. I didn't do the CW crossover thing. I played Supergirl's dad in Supergirl. That was fun. Greg Berlanti's a good buddy of mine who has more. I guess he just broke the Guinness Book of World Records for the most executive producing the most television shows at once or something like that, which is incredible. But I did his first movie that he ever directed, a film called The Broken Hearts Club back in like 2001, which is one of my favorite movies and performances that I was ever in. We played a bunch of young gay kids in West Hollywood. Half the cast was gay and half the cast was straight. And, all questions were on the table. It was great. And it was sort of Greg's life. And there was no money involved, which is always tough to get a bunch of actors to do that. But it was such a great script. Yeah, exactly. And we'll pay you nothing. You want to do it? I was like, I fought to get in that movie. They didn't want me. But I read it and I was laughing so hard so early on. I knew it was a special project. So I went and auditioned for it. And I got it, which was great. But to answer the question is, yeah, I'd love to play Clark Kent again. I'd love to finish. I'd like to bring it full circle so we have an ending to the show. We'll see what happens.
So, Dean, High Point University students are very polite. They wait their turn. There's been one guy who's just been bugging me the entire time. Chris, what's your question, man?
My own son?
Yes. I had to ask like 7 times. I was like, come on, ask him something.
He doesn't. That's the last thing he wants is for me to ask me a question here. But now you're on the spot, kid.
He said he would. I let him say. He said he would.
All right. So what lessons did you learn from football that helped you in your career?
Oh, that's a great question. All right. Did one of those guys give it to you? Yeah, okay. I'll tell you, for football, so the thing I love about football is it's a meritocracy. It really is. If you're not good, you're going to get knocked on your tail, and everybody gets knocked on their tail. So it's the kind of thing where there's one of the things that bothered me about acting and stuff like that was there was no sort of street rules, if you will. There was no way to pay somebody back for something. On the football field, there is. And then there's ways you can deal with it. I got to be honest. That's the thing. I was like, I'm so frustrated. I like to just knock that guy down. I can't. On the football field, I'd be like, I get a shot at him. I'm going to take a shot at him. And you could do that in football. And but what I learned was that everybody gets knocked down, and you got to get back up and get back up. It's the same thing. It goes back to persistence. The guys that don't give up are the ones that succeed. And that works with any field, any place ever. Don't give up, and you'll eventually succeed. And people are going to tell you no. People love to tear you down. Oh, you have no shot at that. Oh, you can't sing. You can't do your music. You'll never make it. And anybody who's ever been super successful, people have told them, you can't do it. You'll never make it. Well, they made it. And that's the same thing that each and every one of you in here could do. So it's that same piece of advice. Persistence, never give up.
So we've talked a lot about a lot of things. We started starting and maintaining and transitioning and positioning. talk a little bit about single dad and carrying a lot of different plates, spinning them in the air. How do you maintain a healthy balance while you're doing all that you're trying to do?
That is the great question. Sometimes you burn out, and sometimes you go too far. Like I was saying to you, be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Know that you're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes parenting Christopher. Don't share them now, but and we make mistakes in relationships. We make mistakes at work. We all make mistakes. Be patient with yourself and allow that you're human, but then address those mistakes and try to get better. And I think that's what it is. So for me, balancing everything for me, it's so weird. I just always was that way. Like I want 10 things happening at once. You know, they say if you want something done, ask a busy person to get it done. You get the person who's got all the time in the world. You're like, will you get that done? Yeah. 3 days later, that's not done. Yeah, I'll get to that. Okay. The busy person's like, it's done. It's finished, done. And that's how I'm better living my life that way. And that's sort of how I do it. So I do a lot of things at once, I guess subconsciously on purpose to do that. But there's nothing that I've ever enjoyed doing and being a part of other than being a parent to that tall kid over there. It's the greatest thing in the world. It's been the greatest sacrifices and the most difficult. Dang, kid, you've been difficult sometimes. But that's life. That's what it is. And I know I was difficult with my parents. Boy, I did some things. But that's life, and that's the balance. I think is being there. I would drop anything to show up if something happened for him, and I have, and will again, and he'll do the same. And it was my adoptive father who's done that for me, and that's where I learned it. And I think it's the greatest gift he could have given me.
That's a lovely sentiment for us to end on. You have been incredibly generous. Dean Cain, actor, producer, writer, director, football star, and High Point University Global Leader in Residence. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. That was outstanding.
Really well done.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Really